This is the most insane challenge run the Ratchet & Clank series has ever seen. And to do this ultimate challenge justice, we have to date the largest crossover of Ratchet & Clank creators ever, all lending their talents to this impossible task. And tonight, we're asking, can you beat Ratchet & Clank without gadgets? The only rule we have is that we cannot use anything in the gadgets menu. This includes gadgets like the swing shot, trespasser, grind boots, and even the helipack. And I'm gonna do one better and say that we aren't even allowed to collect the gadgets. That means before pressing the deplanetizers button, this menu needs to be completely empty. However, we should note that when Clank is by himself, we can use the helipack despite not having it. If you have a problem with this, take it up with the speedrunners, I'm just the messenger. We are going to have to completely re-envision how to play every single level to get through this one. Oh, and just to clarify, whenever you see demo in the top left, that's bonus footage I've collected to help illustrate a point I'm talking about. Just before getting started, we're on a new game, but I've enabled the goodies menu via Rackman. This essentially puts us in challenge mode without the OP weapons and only 4 hit points. You know, for a little extra challenge.
Veldin and Novalis are the tutorial levels. They don't have gadgets in them, so let's spend some time explaining one of the most used tricks in this run: camera flips. The camera in this game has its own collision. We can exploit this by getting the camera caught on something around us and then backflipping. This will give Ratchet a much bigger backflip at a much greater speed. But this does more than just a backflip. With this flip, we can phase Ratchet through collision too, like floors and walls. This is a very easy trick to set up once you get the hang of it. All that is required is collision to push the camera against. And you will quickly see in this challenge just how versatile this trick is in getting us to places we shouldn't be able to.
We reach Metropolis, and this is where the challenge really begins. We get 2 separate paths here. The Captain Quark fitness course only gives us the swing shot, so for this challenge it's completely optional. The main path to the info box is gonna be a little bit trickier. A door blocks our path until we buy the helipack. This of course will then place it into the gadgets menu, failing the run.
We need to get past Big Owl, which is easy enough as we can just jump here and clip right through the wall. This, however, won't get us through the helipack tutorial. These jumps are just too high for Ratchet to jump without the helipack. You may already know though that we can get past this area from a certain other Ratchet challenge video. Backtrack halfway through the level and perform a camera flip here to get up into this area that is bizarrely not used for anything. From here we can wall jump in the corner, as there is an invisible wall that we can stand on. Try to position the camera in the corner itself, and do a side flip into the archway. At your max height, do a hyper strike, and you should now be inside the archway, where we can then wall jump to the top of this building. We can now see the elevator inside the high jump tutorial. Instead of doing a lot of slope intercepts that will take an hour to perform, we can do yet another camera flip here, and that will place us on top of the building, allowing us to simply walk to the end of the high jump tutorial. We still have one final trial standing before us and victory, this massive gap. Normally, this is where the game teaches us how to glide with the helipack, and this gap is way too far for us to jump to, and far too high to reach from the ground. This next clip is kind of tricky, but we can do a camera flip to get between the buildings. This does take a bit of time, but if you do it correctly, Ratchet will be doing his free-falling animation. Move towards the bronze pillar thing, and we can wall jump all the way up to the ground, placing us back on the normal level path. After all that, we can continue the rest of the level as normal, and we get the info bot for Eudora.
Eudora is one of the shortest levels in the game. You normally need the trespasser to open a few doors and the swing shot to get across a few gaps. But we can do a very simple camera flip right here, and this takes us to the final room, giving us the next level.
Next, we hit the blog station, where the only real thing we need to do is nab the info bot for Rilgar, which requires us simply to cruise over to the warship where we promptly pull a Samus Aran and blow it into space dust. No gadgets required. Of course, the rest of the station still exists, but all it gives us are a pair of those filthy gadgets. Those being the admittedly cool grind boots and whatever the hell the hydro displacer is supposed to be.
Rilgar is where things get substantially more difficult. We cannot enter the sewers at all without the swing shot, as the gaps are just too big and Mr. Shark comes up for a nibble. Not that the sewers would even be possible without the hydro displacer. The path through the city isn't much better either. We can get a bit further, but we're stopped by another gap that is just barely too far for a normal jump.
There is a pretty bizarre way through though. You can get the physics engine to really freak out by placing Ratchet between the boat and the island like this. There are two types of water in this game. The translucent one that you can swim underneath, and the opaque one that you cannot. By placing Ratchet like this, we can force his collision underneath the water, allowing us to swim underwater, which avoids the insta-kill shark. Swim to the floating container we couldn't jump to, and jump inside of it. Ratchet will then phase through solid matter and be on top of it. We can now more or less complete the rest of the level as normal, though we did get this weird glitch, where the game keeps the water filter on screen. Unfortunately, we aren't in the clear just yet. This path only leads to the hoverboard competition, not the next level, which is placed deviously behind this gate. We did try camera clipping through here, but frustratingly there isn't anything to clip it against. But we can perform one in the plaza area. Try to get the camera caught like this, and you should get enough speed to pass through the collision, placing us just in front of Captain Quark's trailer.
As soon as we reach Umbris, we've got a massive problem, in the form of this gigantic double swing shot gap. Right at the beginning, we've got absolutely nothing to work with either. We can't infinite long jump as we don't have the helipack, and even these root things are too far to jump towards. However, there is a very difficult technique speedrunners use called a dust hover.
Dust hovers being difficult is an understatement. This is a complex trick, so let's break it down into pieces. A dust hover has two parts, broken up by the in-game pause. For the first half, we need to come towards the edge with some speed. This is so we get enough momentum to actually make it across this gap. Jump while running to land right at the edge of the platform, lined up a bit like this. Now this next bit is gonna hurt your fingers. In that jump, you need to fluctuate between R1 and R2, pressing each button a few times quickly. Then pause the game the frame before Ratchet hits the ground. Good news, that's the hardest part of the trick. Now, unpause and continue to flutter between R1 and R2. We have to do a long dust hover to get across this mud, but you just have to keep on fluttering until you've made it. Just don't do what James does and get killed by the mines, because there's no checkpoints.
That's right, if you die, you need to perform the dust hover again, which, God no. Just survive up to the falling bridge and you'll get a checkpoint. Just after that checkpoint, we've got even more issues. That's right, another set of swing shot targets, and these aren't on lower platforms, so dust hovering isn't going to work here. Looking at the map, we can see one potential spot to cross into a further part of the level. Backtrack to where the buttons are, and we can camera flip through this wall and get into the maze. This clip is kinda tricky, as we need to get the best possible angle for the maximum speed, but eventually we do make it. But don't celebrate just yet, we have even more roadblocks, in the form of these pools of water. Normally, you have two options. Completing the level normally, requiring us to use the hydro displacer constantly to defeat the sharks, or using Ghost Ratchet to simply skip the boss. Both of these will not work right now. The first, do I even have to explain why this won't work? And as for Ghost Ratchet, not only can we not get into the state, but we also would need to use the helipack to even reach the boss arena. So it's on to plan C. We can get to these bars by waiting for the shark to be on the other side of the tank and keeping our time in the water at a minimum. This bit is kinda funky, but you can do a camera flip to get past the left side of these bars. The next pool is conveniently empty, so we can do as we did on Cur 1 and camera flip up this ledge. This next pool is both full of water and sharks, but our salvation lies in these crates. Camera flip off the crates, and you'll see the water collision reaches far beyond the actual level. We can use this exploit to swim just up to the final area, but unfortunately these walls do in fact have collision. We've got a way past this though. If you jump, Ratchet will suddenly remember he's not swimming in water and return to his usual grounded state. From there we do a wall jump off the curved wall and fall through the ceiling of the Snaggle Beast arena. This will activate the fight without us needing to visit the good captain. I was able to get Ratchet swimming around down here. Hilarious, but not very helpful. We can simply defeat the boss as normal and continue our gadgetless adventure. Oh, how I wish I could tell you that was the hardest level. We reach the war-torn planet of Battalia, where we meet the General. But this level is unironically the easiest one in the entire run, without us needing a single gadget for any of the main path. We won't be able to get the gas bar info box as we need to grind a rail to reach it, but you'll see that this is no problem at all. We've got a trick up our sleeve. We reach Auxon, and due to the poisonous atmosphere, we need to play as Clank. The first thing we need to do is a trick called a Clank proxy. Jump towards this half pipe and play an in-level movie. This will force Clank back to the ground, not caring about any collision in the way, kindly putting us inside of the pipe, rather than us needing to do the funny tree tricks like last time. Line Clank up like this and punch. This will send Clank way up into the sky, where the Pokotaru infobot is. We can then simply jump back down to the ship.
For this run, we are going to have to perform Pokeskip. Pokeskip will allow us to skip Gaspar, Poketaru, and the second visit to Auxon. But it also allows us to skip collecting the Grind Boots, Magna Boots, Pilot's Helmet, and the O2 Mask. Essentially, we need to complete Ratchet's portion of Auxon as weak, tiny Clank. To do this, we're going to have to learn a new trick, Ledge Proxies. This is essentially a combination of two previous tricks, Camera Flips and Clank Proxies. We want to get Clank to an edge and punch several times. This will get him to the furthest part of said edge without him falling to his death, 95% of the time. Once in position, we want to go into first person mode and move the camera to about a 20-degree angle from the ledge. Go back to third person and press down on the D-pad and square at the same time to get Clank to face the camera. This next part is a little tricky. We're going to position the camera to go through the ledge and clip into Clank. Each ledge and angle will have a different feel, so just take it slow. As the camera begins to clip, we want to jump, and as soon as Clank lands, press square. Done correctly, this will send Clank flying, allowing us to clear massive gaps. If you want some extra airtime, we can also play an in-level movie the frame after the punch to get Clank to mega jump in the proxy. But this specifically is only needed for the end. Now that we have the tech down, it's time to do Pokeskip. We want to use a ledge proxy here to get to the unreachable platform. From here, ledge proxy again, but do not glide to the intended path. Instead, glide towards the right side of the left mountain. Gliding into it will keep Clank in the air, but you'll still be able to move, allowing us to hug the wall and glide past the annoying flying enemies and break the force field. You are now at the fork in the road with a checkpoint to boot. We can get to position 1 easily with a simple ledge proxy and a glide. Position 2 is a little more complicated. We want to ledge proxy on the Magna Boot path to get on top of the rail, where we can then proxy off of it and then activate position 2 while gliding. Do not land at position 2, instead land back at position 1. Backtrack a bit and then do another ledge proxy to reach position 3. This jump is very tough, so doing an in-level movie boost is recommended. Good news! Once you've hit position 3, you can get to 4 and 5 on foot. This jump might look scary, but you can totally make that with a normal jump and glide. Wait around the corners for the saucer to reload his rockets, and you're more or less in the clear.
The final position is the toughest, but there's no way to die here, so our progress can't be reset. we need to do a ledge proxy and play an in-level movie the frame that Clank leaves the ground after the punch. Doing this correctly will give you enough height to just barely reach the pipes here. I'm going to be open with you, I used a save state here because it took me about 45 minutes to just get this once and then an additional 30 minutes to get this next very tough last proxy off of these pipes and jump out of it near the ceiling. And there you have it, you have just skipped Gaspar, Poketaru and Orkson. A little heads up, you've got to backtrack all the way through the second half of the Clank section because all the gates are shut.
Oven is a pretty normal level in this run. We can take out the group of enemies and mines with the Pyrocitor. We will also need to take out a few helicopters, but that's easy to do with the Devastator. It's the final part here that becomes an issue. We need to jump across these 3 platforms to make it to the turret. To make these jumps, you have to wait for the platform to be at its highest. You can then perfectly time your double jump. This gives you just barely enough height to make the second jump. After this, the next 2 are absolutely no problem. We destroy the ship, and luckily the massive missile that falls right onto the planet doesn't blow it up.
Gimlick Base is a damn tough level. Almost immediately we get halted with a trespasser lock. Luckily a little camera flip will get us on top of the walls. Don't jump down immediately as there's one more lock just a little further up. Once past there, you can jump back to the level path. Inside the station, we reach yet another impossible to pass double swing shot gap. I did originally try to get Ratchet to bounce off the acid, but you only get to do this twice before Ratchet sinks into it. And the gap is just barely too large to make it there in 2 bounces. So we need another solution. In the previous room, we can perform a camera flip here, and I was a bit confused as to where exactly this took us, but it in fact places us inside the pistons in the final room, skipping not only the double swing shot but also the Magna Boot section. Pretty neat. You can then simply jump into the acid to then put yourself back on the main path. We run into another little issue with these miniguns. Normally, you'd complete a trespasser puzzle and defeat these enemies, rendering this stretch of level completely harmless. However, without it, yeah. This is an insanely technical skill, so listen closely. Step 1, walk forward. Congratulations viewer, you are truly a mark above the rest. Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. Jump on this edge bit and follow it and the minigunners will kindly let you pass.
We reach the next elevator where some gravity shenanigans would normally occur and the ceiling becomes our new floor. Spider Pig would be so proud. However, with no magna boots, not only is this not possible, but the game decides you've had more than enough tomfoolery and straight up softlocks, even to the point where not even the pause menu can save you. So, do yourself a favor, avoid the elevator like James avoids Secret Edge and Clank. And finally, our dramatic encounter with Captain Buttchin, which takes place in a ship that one would normally assume we need the pilot hump for. One would assume, wrong. Respawning will place you right in the ship with no requirements. The game doesn't even throw in our gadgets menu after theoretically using it, so another win for us. Before heading down to Altanis the normal way, we can quickly sidetrack to this gap we can wall jump up, bringing us to the elevator to the glorious gold weapon room, where, for the low cost of 30,000 bolts and 4 gold bolts, we can nab ourselves the gold Pyrocitor, and believe me fellas, this beauty is more than worth the trouble.
Due to the storms, Clank is left back in the ship. This is widely considered the hardest level in the game, but it's my absolute favourite. We can't do too much here unfortunately. Steve McQuark's questline cannot be continued without the Magna Boots, but luckily all he gives us is a crummy PDA. We do get to use our new and very powerful OP gold Pyrocitor here though. Look at that power. We get stopped halfway through Altanis by this grind rail. Very funnily, we can just tiptoe across it. This is kinda tough, but if you take it slow, casualties should be at a minimum. Unfortunately, these grind rails a bit further ahead are not solid, rendering our previous grind rail strategy obsolete. But I've been keeping some OP tech from you. Do a normal hyper strike, and when Ratchet has stopped going up, pause the game and play an in-level movie. Immediately hold the start button to skip it and unpause the menu. You can then do another hyper strike by pressing square. Pause and repeat. This essentially lets us gain infinite height and distance. However, it only works over death planes. You can't just do this wherever you want. Using this though, we can get to the end of this grind rail sequence and the level where we meet a shell shot guy. Quartu will be a struggle. This planet is divided into 2 visits. The first is a giant Clank encounter where we then have to go to Kalibo 3 to get the holo guys. The second half is a stealth section where we have to use the hologuise. But this being a no gadget run, we're just gonna skip to the factory portion of this level. To begin with, we can't get past this first door, as the robot is holding the force field up. To get around this, simply camera flip against these pipes on the side and jump through the ground. As soon as you're spotted, a robot will make a beeline for the insta-kill button. The best gun to use here is the Devastator. Just make sure you don't run out of ammo. There is another force field just after some ledge shimmying. This is difficult, but if you're fast, you can do a camera flip to clip through this barrier and then matrix dodge the homing energy balls. We can take out the next two robots on the platform ahead, but this jump is a smidge too far. Hyper stacking, however, will get you across. We are then stopped by a thruster pack switch. Normally, you need to use the ground pound exclusive to the thruster pack gadget, but you should already know locked doors aren't enough to stop us. Simply camera flip through the door, and just ahead is our final roadblock. One last force field. I originally tried another camera flip, but there isn't any collision to force the camera onto. There is, however, one little tool we've been saving. Remember back on Auxon, we got the Pokotaru infobot? Travel there and you'll be able to buy the decoy glove. As you'll know from the Pacifist challenge, we can exploit the collision on these decoys to push us through walls. This is called decoy clipping, and we can use it on this final force field, defeating the enemy and collecting the next level. If Core 2 wasn't tough enough, Drek's fleet is dialing it to 11. This is a full-length level making constant use of the hologuise gadget. There are no funny exploits to skip to the end, we need to tackle this level fully. The first ship only has one force field, and luckily we can camera flip right through it with the angled door just before it. The next ship is more difficult, but still only has one force field. A little tip, only one robot will run for each switch at a time. Prioritize the robots running and then clear up the rest. We can get past the force field by doing a camera flip with this arch thing in the corridor. The next ship is probably the hardest. You need to ensure you have made it to this point with full HP, because we need to get past these lasers. Do a camera flip and 2 bounces and you should just barely be able to get past them. Ahead is another room filled with robots, so just take them out quickly. The final corridor was a pretty tough bit of problem solving. First, make a run for the corner of the force field. You should be safe here. I tried camera flipping from here, but I just couldn't. But if you can blow the robot up with the bomb glove, the shield will come down. We reach the final ship. Good news, we finally hit a checkpoint. The bad news, it appears we're stuck. I couldn't camera flip through this barrier like the others, and we don't have the Magna Boot, so travelling on the side of the ship is impossible. But we can jump onto the Magna Boot section and walk on the other side of it. We can then decoy clip through this wall, and then we can walk even further along the Magna Boot path. I originally tried walking the whole path, but we get stuck just like we did at Altanis Orbit. Clipping back in bounds seems promising, but the jump is just barely too far. However, we can shoot the generator with the blaster, opening the door. We even get a guard bolt for our troubles. To get past the laser floors, we need to try jumping into the green bit below. This will launch Ratchet up, just like on Altanis Orbit. But you need to dodge these lasers, as these will insta-kill you. The rest of the level is no problem at all. Belden 2 is, on paper, the toughest level in this challenge. It uses every single gadget we should have collected in the game, and has lots of enemies. I'm sorry to tell you this, but completing this level in the traditional way is probably impossible. We can camera flip through the trespasser lock, but we can't get any further than that. But we can still reach Drek using hyperstacking. You can see the first part of the fight from the beginning of the level. Line it up and keep repeating the trick. There is an invisible wall, but if you keep gaining height, you should be able to go over it. Using this, we can get to the end of the level and pass these floating platforms in the Drek fight. You could probably, in theory, do dust hovers past all of these, but you'd have to hit about 20 in a row without dying. And even with that, as soon as you touch these platforms, they begin to drop. So we'll just do the hyper-stacking tech. Beating Drek isn't too bad as, you know, carnage. We just need to keep doing the hyper-stacking to get from arena to arena. On the final phase, we get to an issue. The deplanetizer is on countdown. Normally, we need to do a thruster pack ground pound, but obviously we... what? Apparently, the game has a built-in failsafe if the player doesn't have the thruster pack here. This is so bizarre. This is the only time in the game this has happened. And it's not like a normal player would ever be able to get here without it. And even better, we don't actually have it. That's right, it doesn't appear in the gadgets menu. So I guess it's allowed. You can defeat Drek almost immediately with your gold pyrocitor, and with one final check of the gadgets menu, we blow his planet into dust. And the Ratchet & Clank without gadgets challenge is complete. Well now, that was quite a ride. A massive shout out is required for everyone who joined me on this insane journey. I'm not too sure how this new collab update works, but I've thrown everyone's channels in the description just in case. This collab was a really fun project, and I couldn't have made this video as special as it is without them. An extra shout out to Flair, who assisted me in learning dust hovers and ledge proxies. I've thrown his Twitch also in the description. And if you want to see me play Ratchet 2 without gadgets live before the video is made and be part of the strategies we use, make sure to subscribe and join my Discord for updates. Thank you to all YouTube members, I appreciate every single one of you. A specific thank you to a guy named Joe, Bento Baker Primordius, Celestial Nebula, Charjo1, Coco Jinx, Friendly Neighborhood Lurker, Glitch the Fox, HK Gaming, Huggy20 Bear 23, Invigil, iPod Num3, Code Jackaja 6451, mattomega, Max TV, Mr. Ratchet 12661, Multibrad X, No One, Ryan Michael Burrow, Shizoida, The Nocturnal Menace, Vendor on YTB, Zenith 2077, XX Pitters 98XX, and thank you for watching the full video.